Yes, welcome back to the program this morning. You're listening to us on the broadcast waves of Salam Media as well as on our Facebook page, facebook.com, linked to YouTube, the channel at Salam Media, and also broadcasting on the airwaves of Al Ansar in Durban and Pietermaritzburg and One Nation FM out in Polokwane, South Africa. Now, as you know, Black Lives Matter and the conditions in the United States of America are trending right now. Let's take a quick listen to this and watch it on the Facebook page, a video depicting what is actually going on there.
George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
Yes, there you see thousands and thousands of people that have gathered in the streets of the United States of America. And if I take a look at some of the updates thus far, protests continue to spread around as more members of the National Guard are called on to secure areas in the United States. That means soldiers are taken to the ground there. New Zealanders have now started protesting over the death of George Floyd in the United States. And this all relates to the hashtag Black Lives Matter. We're trying to get online with Miko Peled. He's an author, writer, human rights activist, internationally renowned, to get his view on what is actually happening in the United States. And I see that he has retweeted a saying by Ali Abu Nima, and you may know Ali Abu Nima from the electronic intifada, and it says US regime gangs continue to attack Americans who challenge their reign of racial terror even in their own homes. And the manner in which he has phrased that is particularly powerful, because this is the way that many countries or governments around the world have been described, as they have tried to quell protests from within their own countries in the past. For example, the Syrian regime continues to attack Syrians who challenge their reign of religious terror. Just, I mean, if you were to superimpose different words on there, how more acceptable that would be because of mainstream media if we change the country, and how odd does it sound? The US regime gangs continue to attack Americans who challenge their reign of racial terror. And I think it's a very, very powerful tweet that has come out from Ali Abu Nima and retweeted by Miko Peled. And we're trying to get hold of Miko right now. Just a second or two, 1 or 2 more moments before he actually logs into the program. And this is being streamed live on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel at Salam Media. If you have any comment, you can also WhatsApp us on 061 766 0355, or you can tweet us at Salam Media, and we'll pick up your thoughts and your contributions to the conversation. So Black Lives Matter is what's trending right now all across the world. Let's take a look at outside of the White House. The Secret Service has been rushed. So agents have been rushed and have taken President Donald Trump to a White House bunker. This happened on Friday night, and news is emerging of what took place as hundreds of protesters gathered outside the executive mansion, some of them throwing rocks and tugging at police barricades. Trump spent nearly an hour in the bunker, which was designed for use in emergencies like terrorist attacks, according to a Republican close to the White House, who has obviously spoken with anonymity. And these are some of the scenes that one would have not thought possible just a few weeks ago in the United States. An hour before 11 p.m. or 3 p.m., 3 a.m. GMT, that was about 5 a.m. this morning in South Africa. A curfew in Washington came into place. Police fired a major barrage of tear gas and stun grenades into the crowd of more than 1,000 people, largely clearing what is known as Lafayette Park across the street from the White House, and scattering thousands or hundreds of protesters rather into the street. The protesters had piled up road signs and plastic barriers and lit a raging fire in the middle of H Street. So these are some of the developments that are taking place. The entire DC National Guard has now been called into play. So what does that mean? Roughly 1,000 700 soldiers have been called in to help with the response to protests outside the White House and elsewhere in the US Capitol. And this is according to two Defense Department officials, and the Associated Press has reported this as well. The mayor of Washington said yesterday that she had requested around 500 guardsmen to assist local law enforcement. And later in the day, as protests escalated, the Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy ordered the rest of the guardsmen, which is about 1,200, so 1,700 in total, as fires erupted outside of the White House. And I think quite telling is a tweet that has come out, and you can see smoke from multiple fires outside of the Washington Monument that has been bellowing out, and people are saying that it was pretty scary as the stun grenades were fired, and all of this as anger boils out in the United States against the treatment of black people, racism, and sparked by the killing of George Floyd by a U.S. Police officer who was white. And I think perhaps this is the American Spring has begun. And if you remember out in Tunisia many years ago, what had taken place. But we joined now online by Miko Peled, a human rights activist and social commentator, and he'll bring us up to speed and give us some thoughts on what's happening in the United States. Good morning and welcome to Salam Media.
Good morning. Good to be with you. How are you?
Thank you so much for making time. I know it's quite a bizarre time out in the United States right now. But Miko, you posted a tweet or shared a tweet by Ali Abu Nima not too long ago saying that US regime gangs continue to attack Americans who are challenging their reign of racial terror even in their own homes. Why is this such a powerful tweet considering the language that Ali has used?
Well, I think Ali is right. If you know of him and his work, I mean, he always really knows how to hit the nail on the head. And I think people are forgetting that the most violent racist regime on earth is the United States. It was built on the backs of slaves. It was built on the genocide of Native people, of the Native Americans. It has been engaged in some of the worst war crimes the world has ever known over its long history. And I think reframing the reality, reframing the story is incredibly important, because what the American government is portraying is these lawless rioters looting and destroying law and order and so forth. But the reality is that this is a regime, and particularly this administration, the Trump administration, has been criminal in its racist policies, in its racist slurs, even more so than other administrations. But historically, and in a way that is foundational in the United States, this is a country that as a foundation is racist and violent, particularly against people of color. And so we're seeing finally, I heard you say earlier, the American Spring. Hopefully this will be the American Spring. Hopefully this will end up with some systemic changes. But for now, we're seeing that people are definitely angry, and we see the police, not everywhere, but in many, many places, in many cities, behaving like an occupation force, like an oppressive regime, which we see, the Americans usually criticize when it's another country, but they're behaving, of course, in the exact same way, the same brutality.
The support base of U.S. President Donald Trump, white right-wing groups, they seem to have not yet come out, or we're not seeing that kind of media as yet in South Africa. Tell us about them. Are they going to be taken to streets? Have they taken to the streets? And if they do, can we expect bigger clashes to erupt out of that?
I find it hard to believe. It's just funny. Yesterday, when everything here was erupting, a neighbor of mine right across the road put a big sign, Trump 2020 banner, and I thought, what an odd time to put out a pro-Trump banner. I think by and large, right-wing racists are cowards. They are willing to come out when they know that they are protected, when they know that they're not going to be challenged. But right now, I think that entire racist framework is being challenged quite severely. and they usually don't come out when they think they can be challenged. They only come out when they know they're going to be safe. We see this in Palestine with the Zionist settlers. We see it here in the United States and in other places. So I doubt there will be those kind of clashes. I don't think we're going to see things like that. I don't think they will have the courage to come out at this point when they are definitely going to be on the defensive.
The level of violence that the U.S. authorities, police officers, now we see the National Guard coming out in Washington as well, and armed personnel. Is it unprecedented? Is there any justification for the level of violence that they are using on protesters?
There's no justification whatsoever. This is a militarization of the situation, which is absolutely unwarranted, I believe. And I think to a large extent, it has to do with the fact that police departments across the entire United States, from almost all cities in the United States, go and get their training in Israel. And then when they come back, they militarize. And we've seen this over the years in Ferguson and in other cities where there have been protests and uprisings like this. You see the armored personnel carriers, you see the police militarized, you see the National Guard, and so on. So I think that may have something to do with that. It's well known that there's a collaboration. It's called a deadly exchange between the U.S. police departments and the Israelis. It's quite ridiculous. They go there for training, but it's absolutely not called for. And I've been living here for several decades. I've never seen anything like this. But there's no question that this is not called for. This is a militarization of a situation that should be dealt with in a calm way. Should be dealt with by listening. Should be dealt with by dealing with the systemic racism and the systemic problems that exist in the United States.
Core at the center of all of this is the racism and the issue around Black Lives Matter. But have protesters been able to draw on the sufferings of people around the world, the Palestinians, for example, the Iraqis and what happened there, about 10, 15 years ago, the turmoil and coups in places like attempted coups in Latin America, interfering in the politics of African countries, propping up of dictators. Have we been able to link all of the crimes of the United States of America in these protest actions?
Well, I think the quote that you started off with, your first question with a tweet by Ali Abu Nima, is a reference to that, because that is the language that the Americans use when they talk about Latin American countries or other countries and governments that they do not like. So they use that rhetoric, that same discourse against them. So he is reversing that, which I think is very good. There's we see some connections to Palestine, because over the last couple of days, really there have been at least four Palestinians killed in cold blood. We see a lot of pictures of Palestinians being held down with a soldier on their knee, just like we saw George Floyd being killed. So people have made that link, and it's out there on social media quite a lot, and people are talking about that. The larger issues that you bring up have not yet been raised, but there's no question that is part of the problem, as this is a systemic issue, and part of the problem with the systemic issue is, of course, America has been propping up racist and violent regimes and terrible dictators, and bringing down democracies for a very long time. This is part of the American legacy, or the legacy of the United States. But those larger connections have not yet been made, but they will, I believe, have to be made eventually. Absolutely.
Miko Peled, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate that you've made time for us to chat to us, and we wish you all the best. Stay safe and continue with the great work.
Same to you. Thank you so much.